And Dan, you were talking in your column yesterday about the sort of the surrounding noise and kerfuffle because it still hasn't gone away. I mean, I listened to a guy yesterday from University of Wellington in New Zealand who was part of a group of scientists who have written a letter in which they basically declared Britain's policy on COVID to be completely not just reckless but dangerous. And you just think to yourself, you know, I heard him being interviewed and he was talking about being worried about the NHS being overwhelmed. I'm like, you live in New Zealand, you know, what's it got to do with you, to be honest, about the NHS?
Is this the guy? Is this the report that basically said what we're doing is could lead to the end of the world or
Basically,
something?
yes. Yeah, but they've got something like 80 scientists who have signed up
Literally,
to it. I mean, it's like the opposite of the Great Barrington Report.
I mean, look, I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge, and I wouldn't say this about all the experts, although again, I've been critical in the past about some of the advice we've been given, to put it mildly. But I think we've got to be honest. You've got to remember that this has been a very, very difficult, hard, horrendous in many ways time for the last 18 months. But there are a lot of people and there are a lot of experts, sort of so-called experts around the world who frankly have been having the time of their lives over the last 18 months. Suddenly, they've been sitting there beavering away in their offices in these sort of obscure academic institutions. Nobody outside of their own particular field taking that much notice of them. And suddenly, if they come up and they we see this all the time, if they come up with a particularly apocalyptic vision of what is about to happen, and it always leans that way, it has to be apocalyptic, it has to be, this is the wrong thing, it's going to get worse, billions are going to die. If they do that, then that's their key to a little bit of minor celebrity. So, and they recognize, I think, that the gravy train is coming to an end now. So I'm afraid we're going to be getting a bit more of this over the next few weeks and months.
Well, I'm hoping so, because I don't know how much you know about what Sage and Nerve did before the pandemic, if anything. I mean, are we going to be rid of them? Susan Mickey was on this morning again talking about how this is too soon, it's too early. We've heard her before saying we should be wearing masks all the time anyway. I mean, will Boris actually finally make a decision, which is not his forte at the moment, and just say to Sage, look, take a step back, have a long holiday, go somewhere, not France because you can't go there, but basically just go away for a while?
Well, I think firstly, I think we need Sage. We need an organisation like Sage. I mean, speaking to people in government, I think there is a feeling that Sage has, over the course of the crisis, become too unwieldy. I mean, when I first heard about Sage, I thought, there'd be like a dozen, great and the good. I mean, there are apparently hundreds and hundreds of people on this thing. I think their role in this has to be examined. I think if you look at what they were saying at the start of the pandemic and the way things have panned out, they have got a lot of stuff wrong. But frankly, on this, I'm not going to let Boris duck his responsibility on this. I mean, I've said, again, I wrote about it. It's quite clear that Whitty and Vallance are changing tack, and to an extent have pulled the rug out over the last 4 weeks from what they were saying 4 weeks ago and giving him cover 4 weeks ago. But at the end of the day, Boris has got to man up on this sort of stuff. He's the prime minister. He's the one who's got to make the decisions on this. We saw the shambles yesterday. We've got the ongoing shambles, actually, we haven't talked about, which is the whole pingdemic.
Oh, yeah.
In which we can see what is coming down the track. I mean, literally in the next couple of weeks, this country is going to grind to a halt because millions of people who are perfectly healthy are going to be forced to sit at home and isolate for 10 days. And the nation's services are going to grind to a halt. Now, we know we know today.
But surely that is easily preventable, Dan. All you got to do is stop doing it. It's just end the policy.
Exactly. But again, Boris at the moment he's kind of lost his way again the last couple of weeks. And you see this on a number of issues. But he's basically caught like a rabbit in headlights at the moment. He knows what's happening with the pandemic. He knows a decision is going to have to be taken to change the way everybody isolates, particularly those in very important services. But he just can't take a decision at the moment. So we will have the situation, and we've seen that before from Boris. No decision will be taken. The crisis will develop. It will reach a critical point. at which point Boris will be forced to act. But by that point, the damage will have been done.
Well, I actually thought yesterday, I mean, we've got such a weird situation going on at the moment with the way the government operates, that I actually thought yesterday, if they stick to this idea that they're going to take part in this pilot system and this trial, and they're not going to self-isolate, I was beginning to wonder if that was deliberate, to make people just forget about the system and go, well, we're not doing it if you're not doing it, so get stuffed. And then suddenly it was all reversed again.
I mean, I said it yesterday. I mean, I've been working in politics and writing about politics for a long time. And normally when politicians do daft things, you can see somewhere in the background some sort of rationale. You may disagree with it, but you can understand it. What they thought they were doing yesterday, and frankly, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I want to spend a bit this week trying to have a dig around and find out what happened, because we haven't got to the bottom of it. There's a reason why. Boris must have known perfectly well what a political hit he was going to take.
Yeah, I mean, surely that couldn't have been a surprise. I mean, I was hearing people saying last night, oh, well, they didn't realise quite what the backlash would be. Well, why not?
I mean, how? I mean, the backlash had already been occurring. Like I said, I wrote about it. Other people were writing about it. Questions were being asked in the House of Commons about this scheme. And yet he still somehow thought he could get away with it. And I genuinely don't know how or why. And it does raise questions moving forward about what is going on in number 10 at the moment. And, you know, we've all seen all the psychodrama since Dom Cummings got booted out. We all know the problems and the issues around Dom Cummings. You know, he's no mate of mine. But equally, it's quite clear that since Cummings left, there's a political hole sitting at the heart of Downing Street. Yeah. Boris doesn't know which way to turn. He doesn't know whether to stick and twist. He doesn't know whether to fight the culture war or try and end the culture war. He doesn't know whether to push ahead with Freedom Day or delay Freedom Day. He doesn't know whether he should deal with the pingdemic or sit back until everything runs to a halt. And, you know, he's going to have to get a grip, because if he doesn't, then what was supposed to be the end today of the great pandemic crisis, it could actually just be the start of it politically.
Well, yeah, because we're now about to go, by the time he comes back from his self-imposed isolation, it's going to be recess, it's going to be summertime, and all they're going to talk about, presumably from this point on, is climate change, and they're going to be working their way up to the whole Glasgow conference. And I imagine that it'll just drift, won't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. I mean, if all we're going to get, you know, with all these other issues, if all we're going to do is, you know, is Boris, you know, embracing his whole big, you know, hug a fish agenda, right, then he's going to be in serious political trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I was speaking to Tory MPs yesterday, you know, they were, again, you know, sometimes when you speak to Tory MPs, they go, oh, for God's sake, Boris, it's just, you know, what's he like? But it's kind of Boris being Boris. Yesterday, it was literally, I don't understand what's going on. How could they have done?
Well, it's getting harder and harder to stand behind him and say what he's doing is right. Even though some of them are still doing that, there's less of them, fewer of them.
Well, because he's not prepared to stand behind what he's doing himself. You know, this was supposed to be the Great Freedom Day. Suddenly it's, oh, well, you know, don't be too free.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it, does it?
Go to a nightclub. Well, exactly. Go to a nightclub, but be careful how you go to a nightclub.
Yeah.
How do you carefully go to a nightclub? What does that mean in this context?
I really don't know.
Go to the pub and stand at the bar with your mates, but do it carefully.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? You know?
I know. And we shouldn't really be asking that question. We are asking it simply because it's been done so badly. I mean, I don't really want them to tell me how to stand at the bar. You know what I mean? And so therefore I don't wish to ask them permission to do it. So I'll do it. But also I don't need to be told to do it carefully. I mean, you know, what am I, 10?
But again, it's the situation where they say, right, we're going to give you personal responsibility. We're going to stop telling you what to do, but do it carefully. Well, come on.
I know. Bizarre, isn't it? Great to talk to you, Dan. Thanks very much indeed. Dan Hodges, Mail on Sunday commentator there. As puzzled, I think, as many people are by what on earth is it that they are doing.